Welcome to my channel. I read bad books and inflict them upon you for your entertainment. Today, this is part 2 of The Little Mermaid, which wasn't intended to be a series, but here we go. Today we are going to be reading The Sea Witch. The usual trigger warnings apply. There's a lot of SA mention in here. There is typical toxic abusive relationship stuff. If that's not for you, you can skip this one. So just to recap, if you didn't see the previous video on Rescued by a Merman, that book had absolutely nothing to do with the actual Little Mermaid in any way, either the Grimm's fairy tale or the Disney version, and had basically no conflict or stakes, and it made me irrationally angry. Today, this book definitely has a point of view and definitely has something to do with The Little Mermaid. So we're already off to a better start. And it's all gonna go downhill from here. We open with a POV from the Sea Witch himself. Yes, it's a dude. It took me a solid 2 chapters to figure that out. His hobbies include calling forth storms to swallow ships, fighting with the king of the sea Trident, totally different guy, and watching things burn, which I imagine is a treat for anyone who lives under the ocean. He is watching from a sort of perch while a bunch of storms swallow a bunch of human ships as they're coming into port, including a ship that has Prince Karen, which is definitely not just mostly Eric rearranged. Totally different name. Prince Karen is on the ship, Prince Karen goes into the water, and Princess Averil, totally not Ariel, completely different name, rescues him. This is apparently a huge cultural taboo. It has something to do with the Mer religion of like letting the sea have her bounty. She deserves her own kill, that kind of thing. So immediately the Sea Witch is like, I have some blackmailable info on one of the King Tarian's girls. This is gonna be great. He then thinks about R-wording her. Yeah. This is page 5, by the way. And look, I get that this is a dark romance. I get that he's supposed to be a bad boy. It's really hard to root for an R-worder. You know? It's just, like, murder? Sure, absolutely. Dark assassin? Give me that. Thief? Lying, cheating, stealing, all of those things. 100%. This, not so much. Not loving that in a romantic interest kind of person, frankly. We then get a POV from Averil. She doesn't feel like she belongs on the sea. She doesn't feel like she belongs with her people. Very, I'm a teenager, I am rebelling sort of standard stuff. I think she's 18 in this book, so still very young. She immediately falls in love with Prince Karen because he's hot. And it's forbidden because she's a mermaid and he's a human and that would never be allowed, blah, 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 blah. You get Averil is absolutely preoccupied with human sexuality, and we get this little primer on mermaid bits that I'm now going to share with you. We're supposed to save ourselves for our one true mate. As mermaids, our inner pleasure points lay deep inside, impossible to reach with our fingers, only accessible by a merman's long, flexible ding-a-ling. And my immediate thought was, this is just one of those car dealership things, which I don't find particularly sexy, but if you do, that's great. No judgment. She apparently does. She also mentions this fun detail. There was a mermaid who was caught using an eel to pleasure herself. She was banished from the kingdom by the priestesses. Why couldn't she just have been using seaweed? Why does it always have to be an animal in this? There's just these hints of bestiality in so many of these dark romances, and it just makes me really uncomfortable. And I know she said that, like, this was a bad thing, but, like, why is your mind even going there? Why can't it just be a plant? Why do you have to make me think about this? Averil is kidnapped by the Sea Witch's 3 incredibly sexy bodyguard people. Averil wakes up in his tentacle lair, and he's super buff, just rippling muscles everywhere, and just lower body is totally Ursula. I have a feeling I know where this is going. So the Sea Witch makes a little proposition with Averil. He wants to trade her voice, which is something that is particularly powerful in this Mer kingdom. It's like a weapon, it can be magic, it's like a very powerful thing. It's not just that she has a pretty singing voice. He offers to trade that for giving her legs so she can go get her man. There is one caveat, however. If she does this, she has to do him a favor while she has legs. If she doesn't do him this favor, she ends up in the poor unfortunate souls thing. I am actually kind of happy that they're like sticking with the actual fairy tale on this one. It's like the author actually watched the movie or read the book or something before they wrote an entire book based on it. It's incredible. It's so rare in these fairy tale retelling. The Sea Witch even does like a little body language moment here, which I think is just fun. So he takes her to the shallows after she agrees and transforms her, which is an incredibly painful process. She comes out with all of her bits shaved. Armpits, legs, hoo-ha, everything, which is an interesting detail. So, like, they specifically mention this. So it wouldn't really be my first concern if I suddenly had legs that, like, oh my god, they're not shaved. Prince Karen will never love me. This is the point where she becomes curious about her female form, her new hot bod, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Just reading this passage of her, like, exploring her body for the first time, it feels icky. In, like, a pedophilia adjacent sort of way. I know it's not, but, like, it feels, you know? And again, this is a moment where the Sea Witch debates R-wording her again. Because she's naked, so. Great. Let's just really solidify the fact that, like, he wants to take her by force. That's great. So the Sea Witch gets her some clothes and gives her this magic necklace that's like a spy cam, essentially. He then leaves her on the beach to be found by beachcombers to be rescued. And it is at this point in the book that I am realizing that we have another 300 pages to go, and the heroine is going to be pantomiming all of her actions. It's incredibly tedious to have her try to communicate anything. So, and like, I get that's like also part of the challenge for her, but I didn't want this challenge. I just wanted to read the story. The beachcombers bring her up to the prince because the Sea Witch dresses her up kind of nice. And the prince is like, she's hot, I like this bitch. And invites her to come stay in the palace and come for dinner. Through the spy cam over dinner, the Sea Witch has to, like, coach her how to, like, human eat with, like, utensils and stuff, and she begins to start to rely on him. I do like the fact that, at least in this romance, they're developing a connection over, like, a shared difficulty, a shared obstacle. They have a reason to get to know each other and, like, develop trust in a way that, like, so many of these romance novels that I've been reading, it's just, like, in a week or in a month, they're, like, madly in love with each other after spending, like, no time actually together. One of the lords there, Lord Brixius, feels like something is up, but he doesn't quite know what. Avril manages to go to bed, and then that night the Sea Witch sneaks in his own human form, because he can change at will, and takes her down to the pub so she can learn some human things like gambling. Oh, he also wants to teach her how to practice kissing, which, like, I know that mermaids are supposed to be very chaste in this lore, but, like, surely they still make out, right? Anyway, they make out. The next day, she finally has some time alone with the prince. The prince is a dick. He's just a douchebag. Spoiled little princey wincy. So we hate him, and we're definitely rooting for the Sea Witch. Great. We're all on board with this. That night, there's masquerade, because masquerades. We all like a good masquerade. I am a sucker for a good masquerade. I'm on board. The witch decides to come to this masquerade in order to pretend to court Avril in order to get the prince to feel jealous. The prince reacts as planned as the witch flirts with her. And I was expecting things to get a little spicier between Avril and the witch, because they did have some time alone. There's, like, some discussion of them jerking off, but other than that, it's been pretty reduced to the making out. Meanwhile, King, not Trident, is under the sea, and he's about to do this arcane rite in order to figure out where his daughter is, because he's starting to get a little freaked out. This could really put the Sea Witch in jeopardy, so, like, the stakes are kind of higher for him now. We also finally find out his name. We are 35% into the book, we still don't have a name for our hero. I would like you to take a second. Just take a second. I want you to make a guess. What do you think his name is? You're wrong. It's Zoltan. Yep. Yep, they really went with Zoltan. That night, Zoltan gives Avril a sexy dream about his tentacles. Consensually, at least. If that's your thing, great. There's a little too much slithering for me personally, but I don't judge. The day after the masquerade, the prince basically announces that they're going to get married. It's not really a proposal. And Avril basically says yes. It's very romantic, as you can tell. We also find out that the king, Prince Karen's dad, has been poisoned. There's been an attempt on his life. And Prince Karen is bringing everyone to his father's palace and bringing his healer with him. Since this isn't Game of Thrones and we only have 3 suspects, we know exactly how this is going to go. But, okay, sure. Avril almost immediately catches the prince boinking the healer that he hired to help his father. And she's really pissed off about it and, like, is finally like, fuck this guy. Me and the Sea Witch are a team. I'm gonna get one over on him. Which is great. I love a good revenge plot. It is at this point when Zoltan calls in his favor. Avril has to steal a fork from the royal treasury, which is like a cute reference. It's fun. Under the pretense of going to the royal treasury to get the royal engagement ring, Avril does a little handy to the prince to distract him, and then takes the little fork. Eventually, she gives it to the Sea Witch, and they boink. They have a great time. Brixius, remember Lord Brixius, who was like, this is suspicious when he met Avril? Yeah. So apparently he and Zoltan go way back. Brixius confronts Zoltan, and Zoltan puts him on some island so he can't talk. Through this exchange, we find out that the garnish fork that Avril stole is actually a trident. It's the powerful trident of the sea that will give Zoltan his power back so that he can now be king of the sea instead of Avril's dad. Zoltan comes back for Avril afterwards and tells her a long sob story about some stuff that happened like 200 years ago. Avril's mom was cheating on King Not Triton with the Sea Witch. They were going to run away together, and then Triton killed her when Avril was very young, and then they've been fighting ever since. The Sea Witch then tells Avril that he's not going to change her back into a mermaid. He's going to keep her as a human to punish her dad. Avril, for some reason, is upset about this, even though that's exactly what she wanted. Like, I get that she wanted to have the option, but, like, it really doesn't feel like something to be that angsty about. Like, she'll get over it. It's kind of fine. That night, Avril falls asleep and is woken up and is in a trance. She is instructed to give a drink to the king. And, of course, the drink is poison. She kills the king. She is taken to the dungeon. The trance was instigated by the prince and the girl, the healer lady that he was boinking. The prince and his girlfriend torture Avril until she turns into her mermaid form again, meaning that the Sea Witch has to come give her her voice back. They're trying to, like, call him in to make sure that they can murder him. For some reason, it's not entirely clear. They're bad guys. So the Sea Witch comes. He almost immediately kills the prince with the trident. He now has the trident. It might seem like I'm summarizing this really quickly, but this was like one chapter. The prince dying should have been like, I don't know, like, I expected more oomph there. I expected more of a struggle. I expected more consequences for the Sea Witch, but nope, it was just basically bye-bye, prince. So Avril is definitely in love with the Sea Witch now because he rescued her. And the witch is definitely in love with Avril because she's pretty. We haven't really actually seen any sort of personality from Avril, so it's hard to know why he's so in love with her. It's hard to know why either. Like, the Sea Witch definitely has a personality. We get to know him and, like, his backstory. Avril is basically, we know that she's really pretty. We know that she's horny enough to give up her mermaid tail. But the whole time, she's basically just been following the Sea Witch's orders. So we don't actually get to see her make any decisions on her own, which means that we can't really like or dislike her because she's just doing what she's told to do. Like, there's moments where she's like, I won't do what you tell me. I'm a strong, independent woman. And then just does exactly what she's told anyway. In the way that romance heroines often have, like, snappy comebacks, but then aren't really that assertive or confident at all. In practice, you know what I'm talking about. It's hard to know why, like, I get that they've developed this relationship over time, and I appreciate that there's, like, a reason for them to be in love, but again, we don't see Avril making any of her own decisions, so there's no reason to like her. She hasn't done anything yet in this entire book. We're like 300 pages in at this point, and she hasn't done anything of her own choice other than give up her tail, which was under blackmail. So, like, we also get this fun quote from the witch. The pinnacle of my 2 centuries is Avril coming on my. Nothing I've seen or experienced compares to it. I'm sorry, this guy is 200 years old. In 200 years, have you not seen anything cooler than that? Have you stayed in your cave the entire time? I know that this is supposed to be an expression of how much he loves her, but it really just emphasizes the fact that he's only with her because she's pretty, because he doesn't have anything else to like about her. And also, it just makes his life seem sad and hollow, because this is the best thing he's seen in 200 years. Not giving badass sorcerer vibes, it's giving sad incel in his water cave waiting for his milady. The dude could have found Atlantis in 200 years. Like, come on. Avril is woken up after they boink by the prince's girlfriend dragging her by the hair. There's a little bit of a tussle, and then the prince's girlfriend dies. Again, the action scenes in this book are over very quickly. It really feels like the author was just like, okay, we're ready for they're in love. Like, we're ready to end this. There's nothing new to see here. Let's just wrap up these loose ends, you know? Like, I still wanted more tension in those moments, and I didn't feel like I got it. Zoltan uses the power of his trident to make Brixius the king of the land. I guess he was the best choice, and Avril is now the human ambassador. So she can stay on land, but she gets to talk and share her voice and advise Brixius, but the sea witch and her still get to bone. There is another almost 50 pages of them just wrapping it up after this. This book is a chunker, and so much of the underwater politics are just boring and like have no influence on the actual plot or the relationship. I see that the author did a lot of world building, but I don't care about most of it. Gotta give me a reason. And yeah, that's the book. They are happily ever after. At least there's no marriage and kids. Overall, this book was better than Rescued by the Merman because the author actually tried, but also Zoltan was still a little R-wordy for me and ended up just being kind of soggy and toothless by the end. Like, there was no real conflict for us to see what a big badass sorcerer he was, because he just kind of like got rid of the prince and his girlfriend very fast, and then like the king of the sea just like disappeared. There was nothing noteworthy there, and it sucks because I think there could have been some really fun scenes about him wrestling power and like Avril helping him and like picking a side, and like that could have been cool, but there wasn't any of that. And Avril just has spunky heroine number 47 written on her chest the entire time, and there's so much time for her to develop a personality, and yet she doesn't the entire time. This is like a 2 out of 5 for me. Like, points for effort, but still not like delivering. Like, I couldn't care about this couple. I couldn't care about the romance. I don't care if these 2 cardboard cutouts fall in love. I just don't. But yeah, that was The Sea Witch. Thank you for joining me in our dive into the Little Mermaid retellings available in Kindle Unlimited. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. Let me know what fairy tale you would want me to do next in this series. We've done Cinderella, we've done Little Mermaid. There's still a whole world of shitty fairy tale retellings out there for us. Let me know. I'll see you later. Bye.